So there is a criticism against Savigny. How contemporary realistic is Savigny's historical perspective to law is a question, and it is put forward by many a number of thinkers. The people-oriented approach of Savigny does not immune his history from harsh criticism. First, the Volkgeist is perceived by many as a fictional, incapable of proof, and of little value in jurisprudential analysis. Although Savigny's nationalistic zeal might have endeavored him to like minds his definition or description of Volkgeist, the nucleus of his proposition as resembling a spiritual communion of the people living together, using a common language, acting a communal consciousness, was neither here nor there. For example, in a heterogeneous society or a pluralistic society like India, such a society such exists in the most parts of the world. It would be an uphill task to locate the communal consciousness. Perhaps his theory was meant to apply to highly homogeneous society, but he did not make this clear in his thesis or research. Lord Lowland also points out that Savigny underrated the significance of legislation for modern society. Sir Henry Maine rightly pointed out that the progressive society has to keep adapting the law to fresh social and economic conditions, and legislation has proved in modern times the essential means of attaining that end. Note that important rules of law sometimes develop as a result of the consciousness and the violent struggle between conflicting interests within the nation, and not as a result of imperceptible growth. That applies to the law relating to trade unions and history. Thus, maintain that many institutions like slavery have originated not in Volkgeist but as conventions of the ruling of oligarchy. The second criticism, that Savigny overestimated or overrated the potency of the custom. It is true that the custom, being a mirror of the acceptable usage, has a role to play cementing the sections of the country together. But the utility of the custom is limited in the face of social complexities, the challenges of development, etc. Within the context of African experience, we may ask the extent to which the customs determine the laws of Anglophone, Francophone, etc. Evidently, these parts of Africa were colonized by English people, French people, and Portuguese people, respectively. The colonists came with their laws, many of which displaced the pre-existing customs, although indigenous people initially rejected such displacement. They have come to accept or retain many of such laws in their legal systems at independence and beyond. In Ghana, for example, they received English law, that is common law, equity, statute of the general application has come part and parcel of the Ghanaian legal system. Thirdly, Savigny has been cited for inherent inconsistency. He advocated a nationalism of laws. As a German, this meant of the German laws, a legal system must be based on German customs. Ironically, however, he recommended the refined system of Roman law for the German people. This was absolutely against the intent and purpose of the Walgist because of the no stretch of the imagination were Rome and Germany one and the same thing. In the contemporary times, the relevancy of the Savigny's advocacy is glaring. This is because in our global village, there is a mutual interdependence so that based on the needs of the countries, freely import the foreign laws into the legal systems. For example, Ethiopia and French, Ethiopia has done this thing in the past. Note that the provisions of the law in many international conventions signed and domesticated by most countries were originally the customs or the foreign law of very few countries. Although their domestication does not undermine the importance of customs, it demonstrates the gross limitations of Savigny's thesis on custom as a structural or the basic sources of law. Let us see the summary. The concept of law received. Law is anathema. Law is inferior to the custom of the people. Therefore, custom of the people must be their law. Law personifies the people and signifies the paradigm of their values. There is no universal law. The universality of law is limited by geography and culture. Law is not static. It is amenable to development, and there is no lawgiver. Law comes from the people. There is no lawgiver. Law comes from the people. Unlike the claim made by the natural law theorists, Savigny canvassed view of the legal relativism. In other words, there is no universal law as every law is a culture specific and limited by time, space and geography. The implication of this position is that law is not as durable as the natural law school suggests. And more importantly, the contents are functions not of metaphysical demands but of the exigencies of the society in question. So, with these few lines, may not be few lines, few minutes, I conclude the Savigny's opinions or thesis on historical school of jurisprudence. Now, let us see Sir Henry Maine's school of law. So, Maine's deep knowledge of early society resulted in his thesis on man's deep instincts, emotions, and habits in historical development. According to Maine, law can be understood as a late stage in a slow evolving pattern of growth. He believes that there are three stages in a legal development in earlier society. Firstly, law as a personal command. Secondly, the judgments of patriarchal ruler. Thirdly, law as a custom upheld by judgments and law as a code. Law in tribal societies. Primitive tribal societies appears to lack of law in the form that exists so-called advanced societies. The absence of institutions that we normally associate it with the legal system, that is courts. Law enforcement authorities, prisons, legal courts led to the conclusion that these communities were governed by custom rather than the law. So now we will see the three stages of legal development in detail. In the first stage, absolute rulers dominated. It was the age of the divine rights of the kings, where the king can do no wrong. System of the ruler